Hello and welcome to this fourth episode of Skills Lunch, where we take time to discuss and chat with partners, with sponsors and organisers and everyone who is directly implicated in this edition of WorldSkills Lyon. I am joined here today by Professor Susan James Relly and Dr. Neil Bentley-Gockman, co-chair of WorldSkills Global Research Council. Firstly, thank you very much for being with us here in Skills Lunch. As members of the Global Research Council, which is a virtual organisation dedicated to promoting the sharing of data and best practices for collaboration amongst funding agencies worldwide, firstly, what data are you collecting and how are you analysing this data?
Thanks, Hayley. Great to be here with you. We are utilising data that's already been collected. So our most recent project that we presented here at WorldSkills Lyon during the conference was from the impact survey that was conducted in 2021. And what we were trying to understand is how different countries go back and leverage the quality that WorldSkills shows into their national vet systems at the macro, meso and micro.
And what global trends are you identifying then with tvet and professional learning, especially with mentorship programs?
Yes, so I think one of the big things we've seen coming out of this data collection that Susan talked about was a real interest in investing, obviously in young people and their skills development, but also investing in educators. So, because without the high quality educators and trainers and teachers and tutors, you don't get high quality skills. And so we're seeing a lot of interest in how do you invest in teachers as well as invest in young people. And for example, in the UK, there's been a Centre of Excellence which has been set up, and which is all about using the world-class training methods that are used in WorldSkills to train young people here to meet world-class standards and embedding those into the national system in the UK. And there's a lot of interest around the world around setting up similar systems to really bring the know-how from WorldSkills into everybody's teaching across all colleges in all countries so that everybody can achieve WorldSkills standards.
Equity and inclusion are relevant topics in all education and training. But based on the data that you're analysing that you received, do you feel that progress is happening fast enough to meet these demands?
Progress is happening. It's wonderful to see how many males we have in the floristry competition, for example. But no, I don't think it's happening at a pace in which we're actually going to see full equity in the skills.
Yeah, and we're also seeing, conversely, more young women in, for example, in painting and decorating, but there's a long way to go, I think. When you look at particularly some of the traditional areas like construction and metalworking, there's still an absence of young women, for example, coming into those occupational pathways. And so there's a lot more to do. And I think there's a lot more the WorldSkills can do to present the role models, the young women role models in all walks of life and all trades, to actually encourage more young women to think, well, I could do that, because you can't be what you can't see, as one young competitor once told me. And she said seeing other young women doing really different things that she'd ever thought of really encouraged her to think about taking a different approach to her career.
Do you think that social media could be a tool for you mentioned what you can't be, you can't see. Could that be a tool for encouraging more women to get into sectors that may be male-dominated?
Absolutely. I think we should be making more of the young people here and using them as role models through all the social media channels to really highlight how valuable these skills are to society and the contribution that can be made by all genders. It shouldn't be exclusionary. And so I think our plea would be from the research that we've done is to the member countries, go back, think about how we can increase gender inclusivity in the skills that we've got at WorldSkills.
And what are they saying to you? What are you hearing from on a global scale? What feedback are you getting when you're providing them with this data?
It's an interesting mix. Because the countries are all at different levels and they're starting in different ways, and the national tvet systems are all very different in each of the countries. But one of the key themes that's coming through is the leveraging of the quality. They really want to do good for the young people in the vocational education and training route, and it's fabulous to see because the rhetoric for so long has been universities, higher education, that so-called golden route, and to see the excellence, the vocational excellence here is just wonderful. And the countries are really keen to learn. We've had so many questions in the last few days. Well, what will you be doing at Shanghai? What research are you presenting? What data are you collecting? And just riding on that wave, I think, is going to be very important.
And I think in terms of equity inclusion in particular, there's a real appetite for guidance and best practice sharing, saying who's done this well, which countries, where have the young women come from in these traditionally, as you said, male-dominated sectors, and why? Let's understand how have they managed that, how do they do it, how can we help them share good practice and how they've achieved that? Because I think for sure there is real understanding and appetite and ambition to be more equity-led across WorldSkills and across all of the trades, but there's sometimes just a challenge, maybe it's a national context or cultural issues in some countries where it's not as prevalent or not as top of the agenda, and I think WorldSkills can play a really effective role in demonstrating the art of the possible.
Was there anything that really maybe surprised you or stuck out to you when you were analysing this data?
I think one of the really fantastic things that came out of the data was the way that countries are going back and really leading at an individual level in terms of the competitors, the trainers, the CP, the continuing professional development that's happening. That was really fantastic. There's quite a bit happening at the national level, but the data showed there is a little bit of gap at that macro level of how you infiltrate an entire national system, and that's where we need to do more work.
But it's a massive opportunity.
Yes.
I mean, this is what everybody's seeing from this research is a lot of people at the national level are very focused on, obviously, the competition-based training and the competition programs, and they can see how they could have more impact in teacher training, for example, but also in influencing national policy. And so they can see all of this. And I guess the biggest response to it has been, help us do this. How do we do this? How do we think about this? How can we share, again, case studies and best practice of which countries are already doing this well? How can more countries do this? Because there is real, potential and opportunity for WorldSkills to be a catalyst for change at a national level, influencing, engaging governments who are already engaged in WorldSkills. A lot of them have been here. A lot of ministers have been here. A lot of senior civil servants from across the world. I mean, they've travelled from Australia, the ministers from Australia are here, and are blown away by this. And so it's how do we integrate the WorldSkills way into national policy? So we're changing policy, driving standards, and really helping young people and parents think that, following a pathway into technical training, apprenticeships, is just as good, if not better, than going to university.
Do you think sometimes you do need to have concrete data to convince people, not necessarily at a government level, but also parents as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, that baseline data is so useful in making those arguments, particularly to parents, because they've been sold that rhetoric. And they come here and, as you wander around and you see mums and dads with their teenagers, yesterday was just so inspiring. It gives me goose pimples. You could see the young people and their parents' eyes open to opportunities that they just hadn't thought about. And that's what's so fantastic about the research, is that appetite, because the people here, you can see they want to go back. And Neil said, our Minister for Skills was here, South Australian Minister for Education's been here, and just the opportunities for that national level research is really important as well.
And at a national level, again, just referencing the UK, they did a piece of research looking at young people who'd been involved in the UK competition programme and young people who hadn't. And what it showed was young people who'd been involved in the competition programme were earning 60% more. 60% more than young people who hadn't. And so that's the sort of data that gets parents sitting up and thinking, hold on a minute, what's the return on investment here?
Absolutely, yeah.
In terms of how much higher education costs versus going into an apprenticeship, which can be, lead to a career which is highly valued, high prestige, and highly paid.
But also, we know taking part in this competition, of course, not only gives them recognition, but values them and gives them an immense, gives them confidence. Having spoken to many of the previous competitors, that was the rhetoric, theme. They were saying it's the confidence we get from being here, from performing on a global stage. And I think that's what is probably key to them doing so well after competing here. Now, as both of you bringing research forward that drives initiatives in TVET such as this, how are you feeling as the WorldSkills competition comes to an end here in Lyon?
Inspired. I mean, the young people, there's so much we can do to leverage the quality and change the narrative of skills and vocational education training to one of excellence, rather than the deficit model that has been around for decades and centuries. These young people out there, the stories are phenomenal. They go home, they build businesses, they operate training programs, and the trickle effect of that excellence is amazing. So I'm really excited about the research that we can do going forward.
Yeah, me too. And this is the first time we've all been together since 2019 in WorldSkills Kazan in an event like this. And everybody I've spoken to is just lit up in terms of enthusiasm, motivation, ambitious for the future, and how we carry this on. And particularly from our perspective, from a research perspective, it's that level of ambition of we can do so much more through WorldSkills for young people, for teachers, employers, and economies. And it's so big, we've got to be, curtail our ambition a bit, but because you can't boil the ocean. But there's so much we can do to help these young people, have a much better standard in terms of their training, but also succeed in work and life. Because as I always say, when young people succeed, we all succeed.
Sure. And I think that's perfect conclusion to this interview. Thank you so much for coming to this Skills Lunch and talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley.
And now we are going to welcome our next guest to this Skills Lunch. How are you doing, Monica? I'm just going to give you a little introduction. Thank you so much, Monica Pfarr, for being with us here today. You're Executive Director of the AWS Foundation, AWS American Welding Society.
That is correct.
Now, firstly, what is it like to be here, WorldSkills at Lyon?
Oh my gosh, it's so very exciting. I was listening to your previous guests, and they talked about how electric it is and energizing, and it has been quite a few years since we've all been together, and so just to see all of the young people and the excitement, it's truly inspiring.
Welding is a sector that is very male-dominated, as we all know. So how can we attract more women or young girls to pursue a more male-dominated sectors such as welding?
Well, certainly young women need to see themselves and have a role model. And so we need to do a lot more with social media. You and I were talking. There are a lot of female welders who have strong followings on social media. And if they are portraying the right safety practices and quality practices, then we want to embrace them and help promote their social media presence so that young women do have a chance to see themselves.
Absolutely, and having that access to, to these young professionals and seeing them at work, it is inspiring as well. Social media does have some positive sides to it, and of course that is definitely one of them. But how, on a global scale, how do you promote careers in welding?
So, we talked about social media, websites that showcase all the many different career fields that are available. It's not just about being a welder. There are so many other careers. You can be an inspector or an engineer or a technician or maybe even an instructor. So just showcasing that there's so many different opportunities in welding. And welding in particular is a technology that is used in so many different industries. So it really crosses many, many sectors, manufacturing, construction. So having that skill means there will always be a job opportunity for you. So we just need to tell that story.
And I think that welding is just one of those vocations that is overlooked. I'm just looking around right now, and the whole structure of this studio has been welded, right?
Absolutely. You can look up and see the welds there. You're right. The chairs we're sitting on, our cell phones, right? Every building, every, the airplanes and vehicles, everything is welded.
Have they done a good job, Monica? That's what I need to know.
Well, they do look like pretty good welds.
They look pretty sturdy,
yeah,
luckily.
They do. At least they look good. Not sure if the integrity is there, right?
That's another matter. Skilled labour, as we know, is in high demand. And many organisations are looking at ways to expand their welding workforce. How do you advise them to effectively recruit new workers?
Well, it's very important for a company to kind of dispel that inclusivity, like, wow, what really goes on behind the doors of that manufacturing plant that I drive by every day? So I encourage them to open the doors, invite the general public to come in, provide tours, get involved in your local school districts, and send out guest speakers. Tell students what really happens there and what kind of job opportunities are available. Providing internships for students so that they have the ability to come work at those facilities while they're going to school and understand what kind of skill sets necessary. Also gives a company an opportunity to kind of try out a student before hiring them full-time. Apprenticeships are another way to kind of build your workforce. So it's really incumbent upon an employer to get engaged with schools in their geographic region.
What educational support does AWS provide?
Sure. So we do provide scholarships to students who are pursuing all levels of welding education. In the United States, we give away $2.6 million annually in scholarships. We also provide grants to schools to help them improve and expand their welding programs to ensure that they are utilizing the latest technology and that the instructors are really preparing the students that employers need. We also provide a lot of professional development for instructors. I think that's another area that we need to focus on. We need to make sure our teachers are absolutely prepared with the latest technology, right, and the latest skills. So that their students, their graduating students who employers are able to put to work immediately.
It's interesting you bring that up because a lot of people talk about that. Sometimes it's not just about employing the next generation, educating the next generation. It's all about educating the educators and keeping them up to scratch with the new technology as well.
That's right. And in the United States, we're starting to see now where schools are having a hard time finding instructors. That's the latest kind of skill shortage, right? Because at least in the United States, you can make a better living working out in industry than you're paid as a teacher, right? And so we really need to bolster those instructors and those teachers, make sure they have the latest skills and that it's a job, too, that is admired.
Absolutely. Looking ahead, how would you like to see the welding industry evolve?
So I'd really like to, first of all, we need to dispel these myths that welding is dark and dirty and dangerous and not where I would want to see my child pursue a career. So we need to continue to do opening our doors and really showcasing the best of welding. I also believe that we need to, in the welding industry, really embrace technology.
Yeah.
Automation, robotics. We need to be bringing in those higher level technical processes as well as showcasing young people who have those technical skills, and that it's not just having the manual skill of welding that is important, but also those higher level technical skills because you need to utilize that technology in the industry.
It's more of a hybrid way of working.
Absolutely, absolutely. Automation, robotics. We do need to continue to focus on safety and productivity. We want those new technologies help us from a productivity standpoint. But we always need to make sure that we're promoting safe practices.
Never compromising safety.
Never compromising.
Good
Absolutely.
To hear. Thank you so much for coming and chatting to me, Monica. It's been fantastic to learn about welding sector and also AWS. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And that concludes this Skills Lunch. We will see you this afternoon for the final show of this WorldSkills Lyon 2024 with Seb and myself. So see you then.